Chris.
Heath, welcome to episode 62 of Mobius Tubes.
Right out the gate. How frequently have we forgotten it?
Definitely once, maybe twice.
Okay, and the way your tone of voice made me feel like brought to you by Frosted Flakes.
No, unfortunately,
Promotional consideration provided by Asbestos.
Much like every week, no sponsor for this episode.
What if we get sponsored by like Magnum condoms?
I'd be all for that.
Really?
Yeah. Don't bring any Trojans around here.
What? The reason I say that is because certain acts are promoted by pretty adult sponsors.
Yeah.
Soda Poppin' was sponsored by Trojan, and all these girl entities, that's what I call most things that involve women,
Sure.
are sponsored by, what's it called, Ronan? The erectile dysfunction. We should pivot. But there are some sponsors for which you have to ask yourself, because we're a family-friendly show.
No, we're not.
We're not? Okay. How are you, Chris?
I'm great. I have a perfect pivot point for us here. This is a video game show, after all. I want to know what experiences you've had selling off old game hardware.
Yes.
Is this something you've done frequently? Is this a practice you don't like to adopt? I want to know.
This practice has historically fallen on my mother. She was the one who offloaded the GameCube, the Wii, we still have our 360 up in my childhood closet, but I can only speak for turning in old games, trying to get those new ones, always at GameStop.
Power to the players.
It's in the game. So I don't have that quintessential retail experience that I assume you have.
I just wanted to clarify something there. You say the responsibility usually falls to your mom.
It's her credit card with which I buy it. Yeah.
I got it. Were these sales all done with your permission, or was this like behind your back kind of thing?
The Wii made its disappearance subtly. I wasn't expecting its departure.
You got it.
There was just a day where, and granted, maybe she brought it to my attention, but maybe it was also on eBay. But for the most part, I was aware of the coming and goings of digital entertainment.
Okay.
But you got a no console one morning?
No. Actually, that has never happened to me. Not even once.
Because you're the captain of that ship.
Yeah, I guess so. Yeah, my parents gave us my brother and I, full autonomy over whether these consoles were getting sold or not. They weren't always parted with at GameStop. We've had a Craigslist woman show up to our house in our driveway before to pick up old consoles. I think we even had her stop by. The same woman came by on 2 separate occasions. She just loved our used gaming consoles.
Frequent flyer, yeah.
But all those growing up childhood consoles, the PlayStation 1, the PlayStation 2, the Wii, have all been missing in action for more than a decade at this point. The reason I brought this topic up today was I just sold something.
What?
A relatively obscure piece of gaming hardware on eBay. And I'm not one to I don't like to part with my consoles. I still have that 360 under my bed in a box, kind of like you have yours in a closet. I have no intention of...
It's in a box in a closet.
I have no intention of parting with that, even though I'm probably not going to play it. But this piece of hardware, I had very little sentimentality around. I sold off... Let me know if you've even heard of what this is.
Your Turtle Beaches headphones.
No, those are actually under my bed as well.
Okay.
A PlayStation TV.
Oh.
Which, believe it or not, is not a television screen. It is a playing card deck sized black box, which you can plug into a TV. It has HDMI out, and it basically serves 2 functions. You can stream to it from a PS4, or you can play PS Vita games on it. And
so that's how you played Persona 2 Not Golden.
I played a Persona 4 dancing game on that.
Which one were you like, it's on the Vita?
Oh, that's Persona 4 Golden.
Thank you.
Yeah. So yeah, I parted with that. I was realistically never going to use it again, and I turned a profit on it.
Unthinkable.
I know.
Just a collector's item?
It was such a maligned piece of hardware. Not many were made. I don't know how accurate this is. I've heard ballpark estimates were like 50,000 were made total. That could be way off base, but that's kind of a number that you can ground yourself with.
I feel grounded. Yeah.
Good.
This is to make way for your PlayStation 5 TV.
I don't think there will be a continuation of the PlayStation TV brand. To put it into perspective, the PlayStation TV was a worse commercial failure than even the PlayStation Vita, which was not great. So, yeah, I don't know if I'll regret this 30 years down the line when PlayStation TVs are selling for hundreds of thousands of dollars.
They're going to go the way of the GTX, NVIDIA, something.
But yeah, I sold it for 4 times what I purchased it for.
Wow. For an electronic.
For a used electronic.
Nothing comes close to that outside of Game Boy still in box.
Yeah, it was when I saw that they were selling for that much on eBay, I was like, yep, you're going out the door. A 22-year-old in Florida purchased it from me.
Oh, and that 22-year-old we have in studio today.
Yep, on our second studio guest.
Hey guys, I bought Chris's PlayStation TV so I can put 13 Sentinels on the big screen. It's already on a big screen.
Yeah,
I don't know why the 22-year-old from Florida is doing that. How are you going to spend all your money?
I bought a board game and then I saved the rest of it.
I see. Board games do cost 4 times the price of a PlayStation TV.
Not that expensive, no.
Sure they are.
Some of them are.
Okay.
I was
the ones we play with.
Only the finest board games. We can jump into the show proper if you want.
Hey, show proper. Mobius Tubes proper. Brought to you by Subnautica. No, I haven't been playing that game.
You think it would be up your alley?
Probably, right?
You'd
Fun.
be swimming around having a great time.
Exploratory, yeah.
I'm taking this to mean you have not been playing anything.
Let's see. When I got home this morning, I noticed my Switch, and so I went and saw it. Do you know how small a Nintendo Switch's storage space is?
It's like 30 gigabytes?
Yeah. It had Rogue Company installed on it, Rocket League Season 2. I don't know if that increases the file size. Probably doesn't. Smash Ultimate, Wargroove, and Tetris 99 were installed. Animal Crossing, as we mentioned, uninstalled to make room for that thing because Animal Crossing is like 7 gigs. And then I uninstalled Tetris 99 and Wargroove because I'm trying to play that Breath of the Wild before Disco Elysium drops on March 30th.
Okay.
But Breath of the Wild is 14 gigs. That's half of my Switch, which is fine because it's still the best game to come to the Switch. So I didn't play that. And that's all that's happened in the past 2 hours.
Some memory management.
But you're asking what have I done since the last time we recorded? No.
How does it feel hosting a game podcast? And we're a quarter of the way done with the year and you haven't played anything yet.
Are we really a quarter of the way done?
Well, by the time this goes live, March will be in the end of March will have
in the rear view mirror.
Yeah.
It doesn't feel that bad because no one's listening for our video game content. They're listening for us. That's the fundamental disagreement between you and I. Mobius Tubes is not a gaming podcast featuring Heath and Chris. It's a Heath and Chris podcast featuring games.
You do like to point that out to me.
I will die with that opinion.
All right. You did jog my memory on something, though. This is a disheartening headline. I find it hilarious. You mentioned how...
we're talking about EA firing its employees but offering them fun bucks?
No.
Okay.
You talked about how limiting the storage capacity of the Switch is. And I caught this headline. I haven't read it the whole way, to be clear, but Activision admits the complete Call of Duty experience no longer fits on an original PS4. You literally cannot install the contemporary Call of Duty titles all at once. We're talking like Warzone and whatever the most recent Call of Duty is. They don't both fit on a base PlayStation 4. There's not enough storage space.
That's the kind of bummer news that you want to hear. Like, my dick is too big. You want your games to be that hefty.
Except you're alienating a huge portion of the audience.
Just uninstall one and play the other.
If you want to switch between Warzone and like the regular multiplayer lobbies, you have to constantly reinstall like a 500 gigabyte game.
Oh, the regular multiplayer lobbies. Oh, that's gotta be a deal breaker for a non-insignificant number of people.
Yeah. The most common PlayStation 4 model in the wild is the 500 gigabyte version, which this no longer fits on. That's crazy to me.
Whoops.
Never mind the fact if you play any other game, like a Madden or anything.
Surely you can connect an external hard drive.
You can have
slap it on there.
You can do that, and by now it's like a necessity.
Yeah.
Interesting to note, though, current generation versions of games, their file sizes are shrinking. Just because
we got that Pied Piper compression.
Basically, it's magic.
I think that joke lands pretty consistently with our listenership.
Just because the nature of the SSD, I think they can get away with storing less on the I don't know the technical details.
It's the same size.
No, the download size is smaller. On the newest consoles.
Second. A 100 gig file on my hard drive is what size on my SSD?
I doubt it'll translate the same way on a PC.
And then if I bring it back to, it's a funhouse mirror of
distortion.
Data storage.
Yeah. I'm just saying if you hop on the PlayStation Store and you look at the same game version, PS4 versus PS5, the PS5 version will have a smaller download size.
Certainly because of bundled patches.
They can do some wizardry with what they send to your console.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, to tell you the truth, Heath, I haven't been playing very much either.
Oops.
I was so proud of myself last episode. I was playing all these fresh new games, Dicey Dungeons, Florence, Hitman. I managed to pry myself away.
You paid your dues, yeah. Time to get out.
Pry myself away from Total War Warhammer 2, but I came crawling back. Like a Stockholm Syndrome victim.
Yep.
And it's going great. I love that game. I feel confident saying it has catapulted its way into my top 10 games of all time.
Wow.
I'm sitting at 95 hours played. I'm still doing that Tomb King playthrough, nearing the end of it. The differences between the factions have become even more pronounced now that I have a better understanding. In every other faction I've played, the economy is always a sine curve. You gobble up some more land, conquer some other factions, you've got more buildings. Your income every turn is going up and up and up. And then inevitably you use that to hire more armies because you want more troops, and then your income goes down and down and down because you got to pay your troops upkeep. And that's not at all how the Tomb Kings work. Your soldiers don't want to be paid. You don't need to pay them. However, to balance that out, that sounds pretty OP. The buildings the Tomb Kings can make, they give you kind of chump change. They don't give you you can't skyrocket your economy nearly as fast as the other factions. But what this means is you are a slow and steady wins the race faction. Your turn-by-turn income is basically always going up very slowly. Now I'm in the late game, and it's awesome. I've been slowly building it up this whole time, and it's never going to go down. I know I'm always going to have this much money or more to work with, and I just feel like an economic superpower. It's a very different feeling than that sine curve. It's just like a slow, steady, upward, linear trajectory. So that is a cool facet to their economy. Their unit roster is really pretty one of a kind. I love the Tomb Kings. I don't need to bore our listeners with too much more about them. I will just say there's something pretty peculiar about this game. Obviously, I wouldn't call this a live service game or a game as a service like a Destiny or anything like that. But I can't help but be pretty impressed with how often Creative Assembly updates this game and gives it new content and stuff. We just got a big new update. It adds a new legendary lore that's voiced by Game of Thrones actor Ramsay Bolton, one of the most detestable villains of that show. He's now a voice actor in this Total War game. and they like rebalanced a bunch of the Dark Elf stuff, and that was just free of charge. That dropped last week. This game is more than 3.5 years old, and it's still getting these content updates, even with its sequel like right on the horizon. So that's commendable. And I guess the thought I'll leave our listeners with is, much like how if you compare the Destiny 2 of today to Destiny 2 on launch day,
I do,
and they're basically unrecognizable from one another, this game has also just been, through many updates, totally different than the vanilla launch day experience, which I'll never know about because I hopped in so many years down the line. But like, factions have totally different entire mechanics added to them that weren't there. Basically, Creative Assembly has spent the past 3.5 years making all these factions more and more diverse from one another, when on launch day they were maybe a little too homogenized.
Palette swaps.
Yeah. Copy and pasted. But now it's really a worthwhile experience. I can't recommend Total War Warhammer 2 highly enough. It's great.
And by the time this episode airs, we'll be that much closer to the sequel?
Yeah, it's coming this year.
Trequel?
The end of the trilogy.
Yeah.
I'm hyped for it. Apparently, there's like one more paid DLC expansion coming out for this game.
Byleth.
Who knows? Yeah, Fire Emblem crossover. The stuff of dreams. That's all I've been playing. But that's fine because we have so much to talk about in the news, right?
Yeah, we do. Do you want me to do my bit?
Yeah. Is this bit, should we squeeze it in before the news?
It's before news. You would put it in before news.
Then now's the time to do it, Heath.
All right. There is a new skit, comedy skit player in the videos marketplace.
I think I know exactly who you're talking about.
Have you been watching some of this Joel Haver?
I have, at your behest, actually.
Yeah. How do we describe his art style? The skits are pretty tame. You know, it's just things about like escort missions, and the RPG one is probably the most popular.
So this is a YouTube channel.
You're up.
It's worth noting he does these animated skits, and he also does live action ones.
He does live action ones, but these animated ones have taken on a life of their own. People have been making iconic film and other scenes in the art style, which is very very hand-drawn, but also computer AI generated.
It is a weird mixture of the two.
Right?
Now, is this art style actually just like attributed to this Joel Haver guy?
100%.
It's his own brainchild thing.
Yeah, this is he goes through how he did it in a video
that is animated
to the style of how he did it. Yeah. So anyway, I'm trying to lump this guy in with the current stable of skit comedians on YouTube.
Okay.
And here's how I categorized it, with a D&D alignment chart. So
there are some familiar faces on this chart.
Oh, no, shut up. Over in Lawful Good, we have Joel Haver. And here's the axes onto which we're doing this, right? Lawful to chaotic, that makes the most sense. Lawful being the kind of stuff that you'd be able to show grandma, and then chaotic being the esoteric nerdcore. You'll see from the mascots what kind of content that is. And then go from good to evil. Good is like quality, evil is bad. You don't want to go there. Okay. You don't want to like it.
I think it makes sense so far.
Maybe it'll make the most sense as we go along. So Lawful Good already had mainstays like Gus Johnson, Scott the Woz, and ProZD. Mm-hmm. You're familiar with those guys.
3 of the 4 at least. The guy in the red shirt, I do not recognize.
Oh, Gus Johnson.
Yeah, Gus Johnson.
He does
no
like
idea.
Super simple. How Midwesterners call their dogs. Yeah. So very, very PC, very just regular content. And then we have Neutral Good. This is a little more edgy.
Yeah, raunchy.
Mega 64. You know them from who is it, Miyazaki, who made Bayonetta?
Who
bans people on Twitter?
Hideki Kamiya?
Yeah, Hideki Kamiya. Yeah, they did that skit with him. They also did the real life speed run. And then there's Mighty Keith and Auntie Donna. Are you familiar with this Australian
I've seen
group?
a few of their... Oh, I saw a board game parody of theirs.
Okay,
Yeah.
wow. Okay, so they're neutral good. And then Brian David Gilbert is the mascot for Chaotic Good.
That is a good label for him.
Yes, isn't it? In all forms, even his Polygon stuff, and now that he's divorced from Polygon.
He's right at home in there.
Oh, yeah. Lawful Neutral. Lawful Neutral is the mainstream. It's anything SNL, anything Comedy Central, and anything British.
Okay.
True Neutral is the YouTube trending page.
Okay.
Pretty self-explanatory.
Got it.
Chaotic Neutral is the TikTok trending page, as well as Drag. You've never seen Drag?
No.
He does a lot of political sketches with him playing each of the 4 quadrants on the political compass kind of thing. You know, communist, fascist, anarcho-communist, and anarcho-capitalist. Yeah, he's good. And then Lawful Evil, we have Steven Crowder, who is the conservative... he does skets too.
He's the change my mind guy.
Yes, thank you. And then Neutral Evil, you've never heard of these guys. This is the whitest kids you know. They're an old sketch group.
Okay.
Their most popular ones are like centered around assassinating Lincoln and a grape soda manufacturer having a mascot called the Grapist.
Oh, yeah.
Thank you. Yeah, okay, yeah.
That one lands.
Yep. So that's their Neutral Evil.
Let me guess who this guy's name is.
Who's Chaotic Evil? Yeah.
Is that Dirty Dan?
No. The alliterative, you are correct.
It's Filthy something.
Filthy Frank.
Filthy Frank.
Right. So that's my alignment chart. Chris, any other contenders for any standouts among this matrix?
I'll just say I'm happiest when I'm hanging out in the Lawful Good corner.
Yes.
Those guys.
That's easy listening. Scott the Woz videos. They're so good.
Mm-hmm. Chaotic Good. There's fun to be had in that corner as well.
Yes.
But yeah, I feel like your categorization method made a lot of sense, Heath.
I'll put this on my Twitter just so that people can view it. I make so many goddamn visual aid stuff for this. It's really demonstrative of what kind of person I am.
A visual person.
I just love image macros.
You do.
All right, so I've been watching Joel Haver is what the point of this is.
That was the impetus.
Yeah. Have you seen the one where in-game characters react to when the controller dies?
I have seen that one.
Yeah,
that one's really good.
They're all really good. They punch the main character and kill him, and it's like, wow, we're just grunts. How did we do that? When in the actuality, the controller is out of battery.
Right.
All right. That was that.
Excellent. Thanks for putting that together, Heath. And with that out of the way, we can take a break. And when we come back, there's a ton of news to go over, surprisingly. See you then. And we're back.
News.
Heath, you had quite the news roundup. What do you want to kick it off with?
Well, read back to me what I read.
Okay.
Sent you.
Okay. You want to go in the order you had sent to me?
I trust when I made that list that I did it
in sound mind.
You know the thing where it's like perfectly cut off screens?
Never seen one.
Sure you have. Okay. I'll show you.
Anyway.
First news item?
Yeah.
Sony buys EVO.
When you sent that to me, that was the first I had heard of it.
Yeah, same. Yeah. Yeah. When Alexis told me to do my job,
that's what came up.
Yeah.
So Sony, one of the big 3 console manufacturers, went ahead and purchased...
They make that Kratos.
They do. They make the PlayStation. They purchased the biggest video game fighting tournament and / competitive scene event out there, EVO.
Yeah.
Which usually happens over the summer.
Until COVID killed it.
Until COVID really hurt it. So was EVO on its deathbed? Was it about to fold and then Sony came in and saved the day?
No, EVO is still kicking it. EVO's been a household name in my household. That's not how that phrase works. Since 2012.
Okay.
If you're really good at fighting games, you can shout at the end of your victory. You'd be like EVO 20 and then insert the year because you're the victor of it.
Right.
So now that Sony owns it, are they going to not showcase Killer Instinct?
Because that's a Microsoft
That's
game.
a Microsoft exclusive fighting game.
That would kind of stink.
Or that just kick it to the...
Or what about
the losers bracket?
Smash Bros? That's Nintendo.
Oh, yeah. That's the number one fighting game in the world.
That's one of the biggest ones. I don't think they would stamp down on that stuff.
No, they wouldn't. Not especially when Microsoft is publishing Like a Dragon.
Okay, sure. Do you know that for sure?
No, what was the case with Deathloop?
Oh, yeah.
Right?
I mean, those marketing deals were hammered out before it was a Microsoft game, but it is now, and it's still coming to Sony as an exclusive. Yeah, I see what you mean.
There it is.
I'm sure it was like contractually obligated and not really a solid.
But who cares? It's still Microsoft doing a good for Sony.
Okay,
and now Sony do a good for them in return.
I think they'd really alienate the EVO fan base if they crack down on Smash Bros, if they crack down on Killer Instinct. I think they'd love to hurt Microsoft. But this move in general really surprised me. I don't see what the big incentive was for Sony to purchase this whole scene.
Probably esports.
Yeah, they don't have too big of a foot in esports, so that makes sense. Do we know how big the purchase price was? I have no idea what EVO would be worth.
250 million.
Okay. Yeah, I would not have guessed more than $1 billion.
I made that figure up.
You made that figure up?
Yeah.
Okay. I took it at face value. Do you think the quality of the show will decline in any way? Or
I've never seen the show. I've only ever shouted EVO after I win a game of Smash.
I thought you said this was like a household name for you.
So is Harry Potter, but I haven't read the books.
Okay. All right. I guess there's not much more insight we have on this story.
You're asking me questions that I would probably try to look up in like a Super Bunny Hop video and then read back to you as if it were my investigative reporting.
Great. That's what I come to you for.
Yeah.
All right.
In other news, Epic buys Fall Guys. I was going to say Fortnite.
So many purchases going around.
Yeah. The 22-year-old in Florida just purchased the TV.
He did.
Now Epic owns every Battle Royale. Why did I say that? That's not true. Except Final Fantasy.
And PlayerUnknown's Battlegrounds.
I don't know if Fall Guys was the thing to buy.
Yeah. I feel like that's come and gone.
Sorry, for people who don't know, Fall Guys was the only game to come out during COVID, and it swept the Twitchosphere very early on in this year. That's not true. The game came out in like May.
Yeah, it was in summer.
So late in the middle of this year. Wow, dude.
Yeah, it was a very family-friendly Battle Royale, platforming game show type Battle Royale.
Yep. And Epic looked at that and they were like, we should buy it after it's Zeitgeist.
Yeah, I know. Maybe Epic could give this game the shot of adrenaline it needs. It seems like
putting Travis Scott in it.
It seems like this game would be very easy to throw lots of crossovers into, and the resources.
Just make all the Fall Guys characters Danny DeVito.
Is that something Epic has been known to do?
Fortnite just added Alien and Street Fighter, and they crossovered with Marshmello and Travis Scott. You know, I picked the shortest celebrity I could think of.
Oh,
because those Fall Guys characters
bean
are
people.
Yeah.
But yeah, I felt like I anecdotally heard Fall Guys wasn't getting the updates at the rate it needed, but with Epic resources behind it, maybe they could pump out a lot more content.
Yeah,
and get people back in. I won't be one of them, but
you never were.
Never was. Never will be. But that's cool. I'm happy for the Fall Guys people. They probably made bank on that purchase.
Will Fall Guys' update schedule rival Total Warhammer 2? Remains to be seen.
Remains to be seen.
That's all the purchasing.
All the purchasing. Now, what you buying?
What are you selling?
Oh, I want to know about this next one, Heath, because this is an annual segment for us. Tell us about the 2021 Video Game Hall of Fame finalists.
The finalists for this year
And this is according to the Strong National Museum of Play.
The local Video Game Hall of Fame is considering adding from these 12 games, 4 big boys.
4 will make it in.
4 will make it in. We have original Animal Crossing on the GameCube.
Got it.
Original Call of Duty on the Call of Duty.
Interesting.
Farmville, that Facebook game that we talked about on the school bus. FIFA, original FIFA. Original Guitar Hero.
Wow.
Mattel Football. Released in 1977, it was the first blockbuster handheld electronic game introduced for portable. Original Microsoft Flight Simulator. Pole Position, a arcade cabinet game from 1982. Oh, it's a racing game that was hailed for its realistic gameplay. Portal.
Original Portal.
Original Portal. Original StarCraft. The Tron game. And where in the world is Carmen Sandiego? So, Chris.
Yeah.
Maybe we pick 2 of the... Or how do you want to make... Do you want to actually do fun predictions? Do you want to pick like 2 modern and 2 oldies that you would bring in? Or what game ought to be on this list?
Yeah, I'll open with some general thoughts. I thought it was interesting how much of an emphasis the Strong Museum of Play puts on the titles that started it all, the original entries in each of these respective franchises. Because in general, I think all of these franchises, the original games have been followed up with far superior sequels. I feel like no one talks about original Call of Duty. It's Call of Duty 2 that made a big splash. No one talks about original Guitar Hero, right? It's Guitar Hero 3 that's the big one. So it seems like they're trying to reward innovation instead of like the pinnacle of the franchise.
It spawned. It had the wide appeal. Yeah.
So that's interesting. I don't know if that's the call I would go with, but...
Yeah, so it lauds how much the Guitar Hero series has sold, more than 25 million units. But that had more to do with the success of Guitar Hero 3, not number 1. So this is sort of like when you give the actor the Oscar for the bad role because you snubbed him on the good role. Why don't you just nominate Guitar Hero 3? I don't know.
Yeah, it's interesting. Original Portal is great and all, but it's Portal 2 that everyone absolutely loves. It's StarCraft 2.
No, people love Portal 1.
People do. I mean, it's far more limited in scope than Portal 2 is. Portal 2 has that entire single player and entire co-op campaign.
It's got J.K. Simmons.
It's far longer.
Yeah. Most deservings, probably, I kind of feel like we ought to get the Guitar Hero representative. I feel like we ought to get the Call of Duty representative. And then I'm keen on maybe adding StarCraft and Microsoft Flight Simulator.
Okay. Out of all those, which I like most of your picks, you didn't pick my number 1. I think it's Portal that should make it in.
Yeah?
Yeah.
Portal 1 was a breakthrough title. We all recall its original Narbacular Drop, is what they...
Oh, the student project that inspired it.
Yep. And that student was Phil Spencer. Now, I don't... Get us back on track.
You called this a local video game Hall of Fame. To my knowledge, isn't this the only video game Hall of Fame?
Yeah, it's the World Video Game Hall of Fame.
Yeah.
The only reason I called it local is because we share its zip code.
Yeah, true. But it's the one. It's not like our local towns, like their rinky-dink Hall of Fame.
No, there's not an equally local Utica Hall of Fame.
No.
Nothing.
This is the one.
Yeah.
Cool.
Good picks.
Good picks. I don't know anything about pole position, but overall, good picks.
It's just a racing game, and they already have a ton of racing games.
Okay.
I'm not even going to look it up.
Tell me more about King of Fighters for Girls, Heath.
Just the gag that we had brought it up when it first came out, and now they're shuttering its online services. So it seems like the end of an era. The matriarchy finally got to them. that dating sim of a fighting game for the SNK series is you're not going to be able to connect to it, probably.
Yeah, probably only can play locally from here on out.
Yeah, it was just a fun way to bring up its title again.
Yeah, because we famously featured it in our worst video game titles segment. Yeah, I am still baffled that that's actually what the game is called.
It was funny.
And last but not least, you wanted to mention the fall.
Ah, boy. I've been so busy at work, I have yet to check what Epic Games is offering among their free video game options. Ooh, the fall. What is this? It's free until March 25th. I'll grab this, see what it's all about. Let's see how many stars it gets.
It's a game we've given our highest recommendations on.
I gave it like a 3 stars, and you gave it a less than half of a star.
The game's tagline is apparently "Waking up is painful." I'd argue playing the game is painful. But if you too want to experience the lackluster experience,
that's
of
way I kind of
fall.
wanted to bring it up. It's just so that it's at no cost to the listener. Go see what Chris complained about.
Yeah. I'm assuming we can get this episode out before it stops being free.
Dude, I got so much time now that I have to meet Bailey tonight and listen to her cat catastrophe.
What's going on with the cat?
Oh, she went on Craigslist or whatever and from that woman who bought your TVs. And it was like, need a home. My roommate left me this cat and I can't take it with me. And so Bailey was like, oh, should I get it? Because she's already got one cat. And let me tell you, Boo is S tier. He's low S tier.
Okay. He barely made the cut.
He's perfectly behaved. You know, he goes in it, he uses the litter box, and he doesn't loudly meow in the night. He's super affectionate for her. And he doesn't mark up the furniture too bad.
Okay.
I mean, she doesn't trim his nails, so if
you'll need to do that eventually.
Oh yeah, I'll do it. But he's been I did not anticipate he would be that good of a pet when we first got him.
Yeah, you were cold on Boo.
Yeah, it's an animal. So Boo, the only bad thing he does is bat at you if you're trying to sleep during the day because you're a night nurse. He'll just bat at your face for attention, which is still fun. So she got another cat.
There's a second cat now.
Same age, same color. And she's got to take her to the vet to get like leukemia check before she integrates it. And that's what's up with that.
Okay. Thanks for filling me in. Wow, there's a second cat in the picture. I had no idea.
Yep.
Well, that was a whirlwind of news all over the place.
That was my news, though. You want to do your news?
Do I have any news? I'll know within 30 seconds if I have any news.
So, Disco Elysium comes out in 10 days.
I have no news. Continue.
And Mass Effect comes out in
May.
20 days.
Yeah, May.
I am so screwed.
You can just fall back to your 2021 schedule.
Quarter 1 is quarter none. All right, Chris.
How much time do you have left, Heath?
Dude, you can stay at my house until game night.
Okay.
We have things to do.
Okay.
We could play Splinter Cell even. Forget working out. You should hang out here.
Wow. Does that mean you're not going to go over and check on the cat?
I'm not going to go check on the
Okay.
cat.
Well, we'll take a break, and I have a conversation topic for us to have. See you then.
Yeah, I doubt me going over there is going to are the cats having a fight? They've been fine the past few days. No, I'm not going to go over there.
If you can't attend game night, that's okay.
No, you're playing Food Chain Magnate.
Probably.
I'm not going to let someone else win in Food Chain Magnate.
That's going to be
I got to keep it patchworked.
A 4-player game. Janice will be there.
Yeah, he can lose too.
Oh my gosh. And we're back. All right, Heath. Conversation topic time. It's been a while since we've had one. I'll preface this by saying this topic is not very topical, and it's probably of limited interest to most of our viewers or listeners. This is to humor Chris time. It's just a conversation I wanted to have. So thanks for going along with this. We're big fans of video games around here.
I enjoy them.
We're big fans of board games around here. I just thought it was interesting that kind of the mission statement of these two industries is awfully similar. Video games, it's an entertainment industry that seeks to make people have fun by playing games on a screen. Board games do the same thing, except the games you play on a table. Pretty darn similar, but despite that fact, these two industries are of wildly different sizes. I looked up some rough numbers, just like worldwide gross revenue these industries pull in every year. 2020 was a banner year for the video game industry, obviously. So it had risen to it's worth $180 billion worldwide for video games. And got the only number I could find for board games was a 2019 number. So 1 year earlier, maybe more accurate though, because board games probably suffered a lot during COVID. But that industry is
$500 million.
Comparatively $13 billion. So much bigger than 500 million, but nowhere near 180 billion. Video games dwarfs them by, it's more than 10 to 1 in terms of the money these industries bring in. And I just wanted to...
But in terms of the funny that brings in...
I just wanted to have a chat with you, compare and contrast these industries, and maybe perform some analysis into why one is just so much bigger than the other when they both, at the end of the day, are trying to do similar things and be just entertaining games. So, what do you think? Can we have some fun with this conversation?
Yes, we can.
All right.
Well, here's the fun that was going to start is how do you categorize, and then I was going to pick the board game that has a screen component.
Oh.
And gotcha there. The only one I could think of was a really old horror game that had a VHS supplement.
There's this perfect one. There's an XCOM board game,
right?
That has a digital component to it.
Yeah.
It's a physical board game based off of a digital video game license that has a digital component. Where does that end up? That's a bastardization hybrid of the two.
It still ends up in the board game.
It probably
category.
does. Yeah. It's sold at board game shops. That money would probably be counted with the board game industry.
Yeah.
Oh boy. Let's chat about price and what might hinder someone from diving into one or the other. It's actually a point in the favor of board games. I feel like if you want to just jump in and play a couple board games, it's a lot less cost prohibitive than jumping in and playing a couple video games. As if we're talking about console style games. Because you need a hefty piece of computer hardware to play video games, be it a PC or a console, where there is no overhead startup to play a board game. You just pick any board game you have and play it on a flat surface. That's a point in the accessibility column in board games' favor. Now, since those hefty hardware costs of a video game console, those could be boosting up the total video game revenue and making it maybe arbitrarily appear like a bigger industry.
Maybe a negligible amount.
I mean, consoles
even if the consoles were half the revenue, it would still dwarf the board game thing.
You're right. That's a fair point. Even if they made up half, which they don't, it would still dwarf board games in terms of the industry size. So good point there.
Very accessible, those board games. You don't even have to roll the dice in Trouble.
No. I don't know how to play Trouble.
You just press the bubble in the center.
There is a bubble that rolls it for you. Gotcha. That does bring us to hopping in and playing, though, because video games have this distinct advantage where the act of learning the game, the tutorial, is pretty fun.
Cuphead.
Do you want to elaborate on that?
The news story that there was that one journalist that couldn't get past the tutorial in Cuphead, and there was a huge row, and everyone was like, yes, you can. There's tons of these side-by-sides of the journalists trying to complete the Cuphead tutorial alongside my 4-year-old doing it.
Okay.
And see who completes it first.
I do remember that scandal, if you can call it that.
So, the tutorial for video games are fun. The tutorial for board games, insurmountably more prohibitive.
Yeah.
I've never played Brass Birmingham because you wouldn't let me.
Yeah. Like, what we're getting at here is a video game will enforce all of the rules for you. You can't break a rule in a video game. The code is there and will make sure you play according. You might not understand everything, but you will not be able to break any of the rules. A board game, you're the moderator. You're the one needing to enforce that no rules are being broken. In order for that to work, you need to have a complete understanding of the game before you begin playing. And you do that by either reading a rule book, having a friend explain it to you, or increasingly these days watching a YouTube video of Rodney Smith from Watch It Play to teach you how to play. But yeah, that's some homework you have to do beforehand. Before you can ever make a fun decision or start playing, there's this extra legwork you have to do. Where in a video game, it has this onboarding process where you are actually playing the game, albeit maybe like a simplified version, and they gradually introduce more mechanics through the tutorial and occasionally have like a tooltip to help you out. But you can hop into a video game immediately, and that's just not possible in a board game, that is a barrier to entry for sure. Especially if it's a bit of a learned skill. Once you've read, I don't know, a dozen board game rule books, the process becomes easier. But if it's your first kind of modern, more complex board game, reading that rule book can be intimidating, for sure. Yeah, just look at that.
Especially if it's so poorly chapterified, like Scythe.
There is an art to writing a rule book, and some games nail it a lot better than others. And it can be intimidating being sent a rules explanation video when you look at that timestamp and it's like 40 minutes long. So maybe like watching a video isn't quite as intimidating, but that length, those are lengthy. So that will.
But that's a good problem to have.
Is it?
Much like our Call of Duty file size.
I feel like both of those are bad problems.
If a game has a rule book that exceeds 100 pages, that's a good game.
I've never seen a rule book that's 100 pages.
No,
Are you kidding?
They haven't made it yet.
I feel like it's time to trim some of the fat if you're that long. Moving on, though, there is just the logistics problem. Most of the time, if we're talking about actually playing a board game, you need people in the same room together, which is especially prohibitive these days. But video games have online networking, which is a huge leg up. Plus, the concept of a single-player video game is way more mainstream and way more appealing than a single-player board game. They make those, but that's a strange character who gravitates towards single-player board games.
Yeah.
That's a very particular type of person.
That's off-screen on that toddler modes of play infographic that I love so much.
You find a way to reference that every like 10 episodes or so.
Yeah.
Which toddler would be the single-player board gamer?
I think it's probably called like the independent or the solitary, but definitely not the cooperative or the associative.
Got it.
Yeah, if Janice is busy with his family because of COVID, we can't play with him.
Right. There's not really an alternative. There are.
We're left with Dan.
We love Dan.
Oh, yeah. He's the bedrock.
These days, there are options that exist for online board games, be it Tabletop Simulator, which we've plugged before. Board Game Arena is a pretty slick website you can go to. They have a more limited selection, but it's more automated.
Ooh. Spyfall.
Yeah, there's a dedicated
Who gets that revenue?
That's a board game. Come on.
The amount of time I've spent playing Spyfall on my phone as opposed to video games is also 10 to 1.
Here's how I fall for how to categorize them. For example, we like Scythe, the board game. There is a like full-on Scythe video game that plays the same way.
Right.
I feel like whichever medium it was published in first is the one that should get the credit. Because there's like
Harry Potter movies contribute to book sales.
Harry Potter movies contribute to book sales.
It originally appeared on the page, but now my box office ticket is a literary contributor.
I'm just saying, we don't call Scythe the physical version of a video game. We call the digital version of Scythe the video game version of the board game. Yeah. That's all I was trying to say.
Right.
I'm sure the digital Scythe revenue counts as video games, and as it should. But maybe this is a fun topic. We're arriving at what I think is maybe the biggest board game boogeyman, the one that is maybe holding back this industry more than any other reason. And I'd call it the face of board games. I think the thing holding back board games the most is
the clientele,
the ambassadors of board games. Who are the ambassadors? It's the Monopolies.
Oh.
It's the Clues. It's the Game of Lifes. It's the Battleships.
Yeah.
The most mainstream of the board games. These are household names, and I'm using that term appropriately this time. Where a Scythe maybe is not a household name, or an Azul, or a Splendor. And you probably know where I'm going with this, Heath. You yourself made a YouTube video, which I quite like, that says it's titled something like Monopoly Sucks.
Yeah.
And I've got a couple fun facts for you. When this was originally pointed out to me, and I realized I couldn't think of any other analogous situation, it actually kind of really shocked me. The fact that Monopoly came out in 1933. Scrabble was 1948. Clue was a year later, 1949. The most contemporary ones we can think of are like Risk, which was 1959, and The Game of Life, which was 1960. These juggernauts of the board game industry by Hasbro are like older than my grandparents. And they're still the face and the bedrock of board games. And I was just thinking, like, that's not true of any other entertainment medium. The contemporaries people still talk about and are like on the tips of people's tongues are not nearly that old.
Right.
That would be like, what movies have you seen recently? And someone immediately brings up like Charlie Chaplin films. Or for video games, it's like Tennis for Two. Or for books, it's, I don't know, The Great Gatsby. Yeah, those were great at their time, and some of them hold up and are maybe worthwhile of study from a design perspective. But if I ask someone about what they're watching on TV, they're going to talk about WandaVision. They're not going to talk about
I Love Lucy.
I Love Lucy. It's so weird. It's like this entire 60 years that has happened since 1960. People are just completely ignorant of. Or when I say people, I just mean the layman.
The notoriety gap between those gargantuan staples and the actual good games is seemingly insurmountable, yeah.
And these games, enjoying their long shelf lives, would be fine and tolerable
if they were good.
If they were good. And some of them were good at their time. Monopoly is the biggest, right? And I find that example particularly ironic.
Parcheesi can stay.
I find Monopoly's success and prevalence particularly ironic because of its origins. For some history, Monopoly is a slightly edited and tweaked version of a game called The Landlord's Game. The Landlord's Game is made by a female designer.
Yeah.
We should look up her name, do our due diligence.
No, let's just say like Mrs. Monopoly.
I don't think that's her name.
I think it starts with a D. It's probably like Clarence Dowager.
A board game patented in 1904 by Elizabeth Maggie. The Landlord's Game was more of a political statement than a game.
An antitrust
Yep.
argument.
It follows similar rules to Monopoly. Monopoly is maybe a slightly more mainstream version of this game. But the purpose of the Landlord's Game was to showcase how, in a capitalist system,
the predatory nature of competing enterprises.
Right. how initially small advantages can compound and inevitably end up with money being siphoned into the hands of one player as the rest of the players are driven to bankruptcy. That was kind of the thesis statement of the Landlord's game. It was a game designed to be fun for one of the players at the table and a pretty miserable exercise in futility for everyone else playing.
It's great.
Not exactly an experience you'd want in the hands of every family in America, and yet that's what Monopoly became. And that's so funny to me that the most popular board game is one that was not designed to be fun. It was designed as a anti-capitalist rant. Not to mention it uses pretty antiquated mechanics, rolling and moving. That's what people, if you think of any board game mechanic, people immediately think of like roll and move in a certain number of spaces, which, I mean, in a vacuum, maybe it's fine. It just doesn't present the player with any decisions. It removes their agency. You're just kind of following whatever random chance tells you.
It's super antiquated.
It is super antiquated, especially when there are tons of...
Even Dicey Dungeons doesn't do that.
Even Dicey Dungeons does not do that.
Quick. Then I paused for effect. What's your favorite movement method in board games?
Favorite movement method?
I don't know what I'm getting at.
Okay.
Probably Betrayal in the House on the Hill.
How you build the map as you play.
I guess so.
It unveils to you randomly every time.
What am I trying to say? My least favorite movement is Scotland Yard.
Yeah. That is a hidden movement game where one person is trying to evade the rest of the players. Yeah. But yeah, as we were saying, this is a good callback, actually. When we were looking at the Video Game Hall of Fame finalists, it stood out to me how they often picked the original, when in many cases, the sequels had maybe improved and perfected those respective game franchises. The ideas
established by the first one.
Oftentimes, video game sequels are better than their predecessors. I attribute that to there kind of being a clear guideline to improve. The mechanics can be tweaked based on player feedback. Technology itself is constantly iterating and improving, allowing developers to do new things.
Rumble packs.
Yeah, you can feel the rumbling in your hands. Game sequels, there's usually a kind of a clear line to improve what people maybe didn't like in the original. What I'm trying to say is game design is a very iterative process, and that applies equally to board games, which basically my thesis is in the 60 years since the Game of Life has come out, game mechanics and just the basic principles of game design have come a long way as well. The average game releasing in 2020 that most people would turn a blind eye to is way better.
So much better.
Yeah. Than its competitors from the 1960s and earlier.
Yeah. I would easily buy a 2021 game. Like what? Like Calico? That's the only one that I'm thinking of.
Yeah.
Over Boggle.
Right.
Boggle's pretty fun, though.
Is it?
No one will play Boggle with me.
You should bring it to game night.
Yeah.
But yeah, so that was a long-winded rambling of why I think the faces of board gaming are doing more harm than good when it comes to bringing new blood into this hobby or this industry.
Yeah. Well, it's not Hasbro's fault because aside from Monopoly partnered McDonald's coffee sweepstakes, the main cause of the thing that's causing this problem going forward are these ignorant parents. So we really just need to Fortnite snowball these newer games so that when people think of board games, they think of Blood Rage. Or Ticket to Ride. At least make it Ticket to Ride.
Do we ever see that situation changing? Can these institutional games of Monopoly and Scrabble and Clue, will they ever fall out of the limelight? It doesn't feel like they will.
For the good of the industry, we ought to just take them off the shelves. Target should not sell Twister anymore or Life. God, please, you know? If the CEO of Target is listening, I will pay them to not stock the shelves with these antiquated board games.
But
there should be a committee like the ESRB that plays these board games, and if they fall under a certain level of quality,
they get booted off the shelves.
We fine the retail stores for stocking them.
That's a dream.
You want to put this copy of Purchases on Walmart? I said I liked Purchases. I lied.
Oh.
You want to put this on the shelf, Walmart? It's going to cost twice as much as the copy of Splendor right next to it. That's how we get them.
You want a board game tariff, but on quality.
I want Biden. I didn't vote for Biden, but if he institutes a board game quality tariff, or no, tariffs are meant to help domestic goods. I want a backwards tariff. If Biden does that, I'll vote for him every year. That's not how elections work. Chris, I need to rest.
Yeah? How much sleep are you running on?
Bad.
Well, the topic's winding down.
That's the only way we do it. Rap songs don't work. Good new games don't work. We just need to make it way more expensive.
Yeah, I have to assume the advertising behind the typical Hasbro game dwarfs the advertising of an Asmodee game.
I love Asmodee.
Oh, people don't like Asmodee.
What? What have they made?
I think this is true. I think Asmodee is the biggest board game publisher besides Hasbro. People aren't liking how they are consolidating the hobby board game industry. They're buying up a lot of players.
These are sick.
They have great games, but bad customer service.
Okay.
And a lot of the games in their catalog are only in their catalog because they're trending towards, ironically, becoming a monopoly. They're buying up a lot of the competition. They bought Z-Man games. They bought Fantasy Flight games.
Yeah, I love these guys.
Yeah, but Asmodee itself,
they're like Monsanto.
Has some bad customer policies.
Okay.
But that's slightly off topic.
We just need that reverse tariff.
That'll solve all of our issues.
That reverse Uno card to keep it on topic. The copy in store to buy just a simple thing of operation is like $80.
It is?
No, no. I want it to be.
Under reverse tariff.
It's currently $25.
Gotcha.
I want it to be upwards of like $90. And then people will be like, this sucks. I'm going to buy it off my friend down the street. And then the changing of hands of all these bad board games are going to cause them to degrade and and just fall apart. And that's how we get rid of those in circulation.
I see.
And then like, oh man, the old copy of Monopoly, it's missing all these pieces. The board is tearing. We need a new game. And then they buy Dixit to replace it because it's not $80 and it's not falling apart. I just need to be president.
That's really what we need.
Yeah.
Based off of this conversation.
Although what would actually happen is if Hasbro saw there was this committee that was just marking up all of their legacy games, they would just make new games.
Probably.
They wouldn't try to fight it any other way.
Yeah. So, in conclusion, I feel like the people, when they grow up and they reach for the games that are in their family's cupboard, and it is Monopoly and Clue and Life, they reasonably assume that's what board games have to offer because they don't get exposed to a more contemporary game. They're just not even their fault. They don't know that there are alternatives out there that are not 80 years old. They're none the wiser, and they grow up, they stop playing games because they feel like they've seen all there is to see in that board game segment. And new video games are put in front of our eyeballs all the time. We see that constant iteration and new titles, but that is not the case for the board game industry. And I wish it was otherwise. That's my TED Talk. Thanks for coming. Any other thoughts, Heath?
I'm just trying to think of what other policies I would enact as president.
Unrelated to board games.
I would make part of the citizenship test. You have to win a round of Skull.
Oh.
I don't know.
Because we want citizens who are good at deceit.
There's just, which is probably what you wouldn't want.
We only allow people who lose at Skull in as citizens because they're very trustworthy individuals. Well, that's going to be episode 62 of Mobius Tubes.
And what an episode it was.
If you want to give us burning questions, you can do so by sending us an email at mobiustubespodcast@gmail.com.
That's mobiustubespodcast@gmail.com.
We haven't had one in a while, so we're just itching to read one.
Let us know what other sketch comedy on YouTube should be up our alley. I don't really care for the old, like, Niga Higa and... gosh, like Smosh.
That's a name I haven't heard in a while.
They're just so old. Yeah.
Let us know your favorite board games. Unless it's Monopoly, you don't need to tell me.
Yeah, if it's Monopoly, pause this MP3, find the nearest punji pit and jump in it.
No, find the nearest Target. You can buy a copy of Splendor right from Target.
Yeah. Don't even sell your copy of Monopoly. That just prolongs the problem.
Right. Just put it right in the recycling bin. And Heath, how are we going to spend the rest of our day here?
You're going to work out.
I'm going to work out.
And then we're going to go to game night. And then Bailey's going to text me and be like, why aren't you here babying my cat? And I'm going to have to be like, ah.
We've got Food Chain Magnate to play instead.
Food Chain Magnate.
It's our second game of it. And we're pretty excited. You won last time.
I can't wait to see what the new map is going to be. Make sure it's extra good.
Have you planned out who you're going to hire first?
Oh, we're going drinks.
Okay. What if there's very few drinks on the map?
Despite the fact.
Handicap yourself.
Rush Blimp.
Since you won by so much last time.
Yeah.
All right. Well, I'm super excited for that. And I'll catch you on the next episode, Heath.
Bye-bye.
Bye.